Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I got asked a question by a viewer recently about the electrics on these 3-in-1 mill drill things. Preface this by saying I'm no electronics expert, but I will show you what I have and then attempt to sort of explain it. I'll probably get some of this wrong, but at least this will be sort of a video record of what this stuff is supposed to look like when it's together. So I have mine plugged into a 20 amp dedicated outlet. This is a 110 or 120 machine, by the way, or mine is. So that goes typically to this box here, which normally will have this cover on it. Get that in frame. So let me show you real quick how these little covers come off. All you got to do is take your screwdriver, stick it in. Actually, I need a wider screwdriver than that. Stick it in one side, just pop a little bit, and it should pop right off, and you can take it off. On mine, I set it up a little bit different. It actually runs over here first to a 20 amp switch. And the reason I did that is because it's a safety feature for me. I can reach down and quickly turn the machine completely off with just that switch and not have to worry about its normal switching, which I'll show you in just a second. So that's just a separate aside that I have it coming out of the wall, going to this switch, and then back to this box. Whereas normally on a factory machine it goes straight into this box from the wall. Okay? From there we have a ground wire coming out and two black wires. That's your normal 3-wire 110 circuit. That goes then inside the machine to the switch. Now, normally from the factory, this is your only switch on this particular machine. This switch goes forward, reverse, and up is off. Normally there's screws in here. I just took this off. So the reason I added the other regular toggle switch is because to get this to go off and on, you actually have to make this move. And that is probably pretty simple if something goes wrong, but it's real more intuitive to my brain to just flip a switch and it's off. So that's what I did. So essentially all I use this for is forward and reverse. I don't even put it in the off position ever. I just turn the other switch off. And it has a handy little thing on here that shows you turning. That is the reverse, I believe. And then on the other side it shows a drill bit. That is your forward. And this is just a common old rotary switch, and it looks a little bit more complicated. Well, it looks complicated because it is. So essentially what you have here, ignore the red, that's just a repair. You have your two lines coming in from the little box below that I showed you, coming into one side of your rotary switch. And then you have jumpers to these other points. On the other side, looks like a mess, but you actually have 3 wires going out, and they go to the motor. The rest of these wires here are just jumpers between the other, there's 6 points here. There's 6 points on both sides. So that's what this switch looks like, and there is also a ground wire up in here that's just connected to the machine. So let me carefully put that back in there. Be careful when you're taking these in and out because these connections are a little bit fragile and you can break them off. As you can see, I've already broken that one off and repaired it. Okay, from there we have on the back side here, now on the motor, we have another little cover, and that covers this switch box. So if we look really closely on the cover for the motor, you see that there is sort of a schematic. To be honest with you, I don't make any heads or tails out of it. So basically what I'm telling you is that you know, your machine, you may have to do some trial and error to figure out what is what. This cover on the outside of the machine, on the machine itself, has a little diagram as well. Let me show you that. Electrical wise would be a black wire and a white wire coming in, and then the other side will be ground. And then this third one here is actually not used in this particular wiring block. Yours may or may not be. If you have a three-phase, it'll probably use that other one. All right, let's look at a diagram representation of this and what's going on. I'm not going to pretend to know exactly how it works, why it works this way, but just practically this is what we were seeing on the motor itself. So let's first of all ignore this side. By the way, this diagram is in the manual for this machine, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. So ignore this side. This is for three-phase. We don't have three-phase. If you have three-phase, then you can look at this side, but let's just look at the single-phase side. So this is our switch. This is our rotary switch, and you notice there's 12 positions on it, just like we saw on the switch itself. So we have line coming in, neutral coming in. Those are jumpered together, just like we saw on the switch, to two others apiece, two other terminals. And then going out, we have 4 wires and then 4 jumpers between those wires. The next part is the mapping of the switch itself. And if you noticed on the switch when we had it out of the machine, there was no markings on it. So unfortunately, well, there was no markings that I could see. Unfortunately, you may have to map the switch yourself, which would probably be a good idea anyway if you're buying an aftermarket switch, or if you have one that you don't know exactly what the positions represent. So I'm going to also put a link in the description to two videos actually, that talk about the mapping of these switches and how that works. Essentially for this video though, what we have is we have 4 wires going to the motor, 2 pairs basically going to the motor for forward and reverse. In this case they're mapped where this pair has power for both milling and turning and has no connection for off. This pair is the second wire out for turning, and this pair is the second wire out for drilling and milling. Now again, I'm not going to pretend I know why it's done this way. I'm not an electrician, and I can follow diagrams and I can follow the logic here, but I'm not sure electrically why they do it this way. I'm also not sure, and maybe somebody in the comments can tell me, what is actually doing the reversing of the motor. Is it the way the motor's wired internally, to where you apply power to one side or another and the motor reverses, or is the switch actually changing the phase of the electrons, so to speak, so that it runs the motor backwards essentially? I'm not quite sure about that, and I haven't really found a good answer to that as well. But that's basically how what you were seeing in the machine, what it's doing. You have a pair coming in, a line and a neutral. They're jumpered together on one side to 2 other poles each. Then you have 2 pairs coming out of the other side with jumpers between to send that power out, depending on what position the switch is actually in. And the switch is 3 position. It's turning one way, off, turning the other way. So, you know, again, this is introductory to what's going on basically. It's not intended to be a wiring video. Very clear here. You have to do your own research on your own machine and how your switch works and what each position does. Basically, that is all there is to it. You've got a plug from the wall going to this switch, which converts that one power source, turns it around, and puts it into the motor in such a way that the motor is either running in forward or reverse. Basically that's simple, except there's a lot that goes into actually making that happen. If you don't use this without a switch, a separate switch, make sure that when you turn this dial, you go completely to stop, hesitate, and then turn it to whichever you're going to, forward or reverse. If I haven't said this before, it is the motor that is reversing. There is not a gear change reversal on at least my machine and most of the machines that I've seen like this. They use a reversible motor to do the reversing. And the reason you have to have reverse is because if you don't, the lathe or the mill will turn the improper direction for your tooling. So anyway, I hope that helps whoever. I'm sorry, you know, I'm dealing here with all black wires, so it's kind of hard to do a really good demonstration of what's happening here. And to be honest with you, I'm a little sketchy on it myself. I didn't wire this machine when I got it. I really have only repaired the brake you saw there and tightened the switch up a little bit. I haven't had to do any other maintenance on it. I did take apart the motor and put it back together with new bearings, but other than that, I really haven't done a lot with the electronics other than add the switch, which is simple because all you're doing with the switch is you're interrupting the power coming in to the machine, and instead of it going straight to the box, I'm just routing it through the switch. So I hope that's helpful, and otherwise I'll see you next time. I will say that it's been about a month and a half since I made a video, and there's no real good reason for that. It's just time and motivation. So I'm getting back into it. It's warming up a little bit around here, and although it's not really been that cold in Georgia this year, it's still cold enough for me and my back. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.